Alright guys, I'm gonna start us out with the second video to the Blood Angels part so we can get it out of the way. It should not be that long because playing a melee army, like I tell most of you guys, is pretty damn simple and easy. Let's leave all this the exact same. Let's go through the basic simple principle of what Blood Angels are trying to do. And this is all of you guys are gonna know this. There's my music. I need to like actually close that. Let's just pause it. Thanks. Anyway, some hype music. I usually have that going in the background. Why? Because I play a lot of competitive games, and so something to get my mind to open up and stuff, and blood going. Okay. Anyways, so what do melee armies want to do? Very simple. They're gonna number one, stage. Okay, you guys already know this stuff, but we're gonna go through it anyways, just for whatever reason. We're gonna stage in this location. This follows our rotating principle, where you also have this staging point right here, and technically we also have this staging point right behind this wall, and behind here if you really wanted to, and along with this area as well. So we have multiple staging points that we can stage behind. Where are we going to pick and choose? It comes down to if our opponent's shooting angles, or if our opponent does not want us to stand in this location. They'll put like a giant tank in this location at the beginning of the game, telling us that please stand back here, not on the ruin, otherwise you will get shot from like a repulsor executioner and will take out a whole bunch of damage basically. Also, don't want to go all the way up here too quickly because they can move from this location upwards to move block us or just charge us and deal extra damage if they have counter charge threat. Same thing in the center. They can move up to the center, but usually melee armies are faster with advantage charge, all this stuff hit harder, and have other gimmicks to just win the fight phase. So what Blood Angels do on this map is move their armies behind these locations, get back here, get over here, and maybe hide something on this side where we can hide, and maybe hide back here in this location. Same thing with back here. And these are all of our staging points pretty much covered. You could say this is a staging point too, but this one up here is just better for us in general because it's closer to both objectives and our opponent. So yeah, staging, we got staging out of the way. Stage. The next thing we want to be doing essentially is trading, right? This is a normal thing in 40k. Melee armies trade pretty effectively, but they also take over the board like world leaders. So Blood Angels and world leaders, with shooting angles, your threat projection comes from shooting angles, which is like this way, so you can't come on this terrain piece. This way you can't stand in the open. Same thing with this way, and same thing with this one. You can't really stand over here, you can't do whatever, but then melee armies take the advantage that our threat range are like bubbles. And we like to move anywhere in this vicinity. So any of these units have like a huge threat range bubble, and if we do it correctly, if I erase all of these markers real quick and go into our bubble range, which I know you guys are all familiar with, but I'm just doing this on the fly like I always do. We measure out the inches. We go to our tool. That doesn't want to work. Oh, that's because I'm in this mode. Measure out our line tool, and we measure 12 inches is our movement, which means if we get it in advance, we're going to be going basically 15 inches, and then we charge, we're going like 20 inches minimum. So from the middle of the map, we can go anywhere we want into our opponent's deployment zone, which is why melee armies like Blood Angels and World Leaders are so goddamn scary. Is because we can go through walls, we can go 20 inches is our threat range, like bare minimum 21, right? What do we want to make it basically, and it scares our opponent. If you stand in this position, gunline armies cannot shoot you. They cannot interact with you, but you can interact with them, or they have to stay 21 inches behind all the way back here. Okay, now obviously we're gonna go around the container, so we're gonna lose like 4 inches of movement, so 16 inches is like right to the deployment zone pretty much, is where they don't want to be. And sometimes you can get more if you get +1 to charge or roll like automatic 6, etc. You can go really far on your charges like World Leaders and Sisters of Battle. So with these type of armies, I don't know what this is that just popped up, but it needs to go away. Anyways, I don't know what that is. Rewind time. Now I'm breaking TTS. Okay. Anywho's, it's gone. So staging, threat, projection is what we're gonna do. By doing this, by staging we gain board control. Board control. Okay. We got board control, we got staging. If you guys can't read this, I'm talking about it anyway, so it's irrelevant. Just trying to get this video to be as fast as possible. Yeah, so board control. Now that you got board control as a Blood Angels army, our duty is to stand on these objectives and score our points. Now this one we can hold really easily and we'll score our points. That's easy. If our opponent is trying to move up to deny us primary, our other units that are hiding back here or extra ones back here are going to go one by one, and we're going to kind of recycle. So what we're going to do is recycle. So we got staging, we got board control. Okay, ignore all this whatever shit I'm doing here. Looks ugly. And then we got trading. But I'm going to say, so we got trading, but more so trading. But what does trading look like in Blood Angels or a melee army? This is the same thing for shooting armies, but it's not seen as often because shooting armies really are more expensive. They have to play a different type of style. While you can't buy a 90-point tank, if maybe for Eldar you can, but for us Space Marine players, generally our tanks are like 200 points, around the size of a hecaton. You can't really buy that. Same thing with gladiator tanks, and you can't really run all gladiators unless you're playing Iron Hands, and in that sense, again, it's like terrain dependent. So we got trading, but what trading really comes down to is recycling. Recycle. Okay, recycling is a big thing. What does this mean? What it means is that if this unit is staged up here, this will go up, take out something, and make a wall. This unit will go up, make a wall. This unit will go up, make a wall. So we gain more board control. So we kind of go backwards. Okay, what we do is we get to this point and we're like, okay, we got to recycle. What do we got to do? We got to trade. Then we got to gain board control to stage. Okay, so you move up to trade, to gain board control by putting our opponent back in their base, and by recycling our units we go back into our staging positions. Okay, this is why people have a lot of problems with MSU armies, and this is why I go into MSU Blood Angels a lot more than most other people are going to be. Like my one buddy Cody, he wants to go down like running 30 dudes with just jump packs and smashing people's face in like 3 or 4 big units, and having like the bare minimum of scoring, like literally 1 scout, 1 infiltrator unit, and that's kind of it. And like jump pack and intercessors, right? That's it. He's got 5 scoring units, and everything else is just big stuff that he can fit in. So this process right here is what you want to be going towards, and like recycling back and forth. The finale to this is that once we are running low on resources, we can do this for like 2, maybe 3 turns. Okay, and then we have our big go turn, which happens to overwhelm. Melee armies, if you play demons, if you play even Votan with berserkers and stuff like this, or anything that is going to be aggressive at one point, we kind of want to overwhelm our opponent, and melee armies do this extremely well because we don't want to trade a 400-point brick that hits super hard for a 400-point unit. We actually want to overwhelm our opponent so they can't deal with everything we have at once, and then when the next round starts, our units are already in their deployment zone, and we're just going to get easy access to their back lines and keep them off of the objectives for an extra turn, which is why World Leaders of Blood Angels, you'll be out of units by the end of the game, but you'll have 1 on points drastically. And if you played against World Leaders, if you play World Leaders, you'll understand that, oh, yeah, my units died, but guess what? I scored all the points, and my opponents were too busy dealing with this, or too busy trying to move up slowly and get into a good position and, like, you know, screen out my Blood Angel attacks and my demons from coming in. That allowed me to gain some space. Melee armies generally can only last 2 or 3 turns in combat with everything, which is why I like more trash. So the turn 1, use trash to score. Turn 2, you go trade, lose about, a quarter of your army, maybe 300 points of your army, probably closer to 300 points. And then turn 3, you either go or you hold back for an extra turn. It's same thing with orcs. Some of you guys do play orcs, like Nogi. And when you do play orcs, you do have to consider the fact if you want to become an exceptional orc player, it's not about just calling the wall and going in when you can hit your opponent really hard. It's about, do I need to call the wall right now? If I call the wall, I'll win the game 80% of the time, and it looks really good to me. And this is when we go back to my coachings on feelings, right? If you're already going to win the game, you don't have to press the close game button if you're going to win. What you want to do is ask yourself, how long can I hold back and win the game without doing anything? Am I beating my opponent so badly macro-wise on the table that he just can't do anything? Is he a new player who doesn't understand how to play against orcs, so he's really like trying to hide and not get killed? If he's trying not to get killed, you don't have to do anything. You just stand back and you skip through the 5 turns in 30 minutes and the game's over and you win 100 to like 0 pretty much. You don't have to like call the wall or attack your opponent, which is why when I go to tournaments, sometimes I like to play non-interactive Warhammer. If I'm playing World Leaders and my opponent decides to stand all the way back here, I literally will just pass my turn. I'll be like, okay, man, I'm just going to do cleanse and pass the turn. My opponent's going to be like, oh, what do I do now? He didn't move towards me. I'm like, no, I'm not going to move towards you. You moved away from me and I'm on the objectives. It's your job to come take me off of it. Right? If you can't do it, you're going to win the game no matter what. So, yeah. So, with Blood Angels, you kind of follow this plan. You can write it down in your own good handwriting. My handwriting sucks on the computer, especially like this. But yeah, so that's how you want to be playing Blood Angels. That's why you want more MSC units. And this is a quick process of what to do. Now, on the big go turn, we're going to get back to our go turn, okay? Go turn. What do you do on go turns? You kind of are out of your trash units. You have to use your big units, and it's important because if your opponent runs out of runs out of trash before you do, your big stuff can go into their big stuff, and that's what you really want. And against anvil armies like demons who have granite clean ones and Slaxy, they gotta use their big points to combat you faster because they're running like a lot of big things. And so your big things go into their big things, gain point efficiency, and you kind of table your opponent that way. So you trade up, you don't trade at all. You also, like I said, overwhelm your opponent on all sides all at once. Send 400 points of your army this way. Send 400 points of your army down the center. And then have your unit of scouts sitting on this objective holding primary. And your base is holding primary. Okay? And then your big units go and kill a shit ton of their points. Even if you trade down, let's just say you only kill 300 points worth of their army on this side, 300 points of their army on this side. Because you're probably going to be trading more effectively, and your opponent's going to have bad positioning and less on the scoreboard, when you do trade down like this, you still have to use up a lot of points to kill your 400 point units, which are a lot easier to kill, but they still have to have units in position to do it. And also, again, they have to get onto the objectives, right? And they don't. If you do survive with armor contempt, cover, invols, all this stuff, your opponent's going to really struggle to charge you because you're a melee army. Even a single commander in Blood Angels has like 7, 8 attacks, 9 attacks, and they're going to lose that fight most of the time with the trash. So yeah, that's kind of how it goes. And that's ultimately how you play Blood Angels. Now I'm going to go into a little bit of different tactics. With rapid ingress is something you use for Blood Angels very heavily. One of your units should always be in rapid ingress, one of your big units. I don't start Dante in rapid ingress because he has a +1 to advance and charge at all times, and he's very durable and he moves very quickly. But my other brick that's coming from Deep Strike, which is either a 5-man jump intercessor squad or my Death Company, they're more cheap, more affordable to throw out there and kind of die, and that's basically why they come in from rapid ingress, and they're also harder to hide, basically. So we use that unit to come in from rapid ingress, and they go in and they kind of trade while our big sanguinary unit stays back. So like I showed you before, it would hide in this little area, so it could gain access to any of these locations very easily, and or even back here if you really wanted to on this map. So you can, with your fast moving, you can really go anywhere you want, and threat both of the objectives. Very simply put. But rapid ingress. How do you create space for rapid ingress? You guys know how to do it. I posted a photo for creating pockets and all this stuff. That's another thing world leaders do. When we go into this whole recycle moment of pushing up this board, let's say we don't fight over this objective, we just fight over these two. We push our opponent back, and what happens if our opponent wants to push this way, we rapid ingress back here or back here, and our opponent does not want that. So he's not going to push towards our lines with the majority of his army, because we will literally obliterate whatever he puts in front of us. And this way, if our opponent does not have the fly keyword, or does not make use of the urgency of trying to get board control back from the Blood Angels army, they'll be stuck back here, and we'll have all this space open to rapid ingress back in this pocket, back in this open field if you really want to. If they don't have shooting, or if you don't mind eating a little bit of pot shots, so they didn't put anything scary to shoot you down this way, you can just have a giant brick land right here, land over here, land over here, land wherever you want, right? And ultimately, the big thing also is the reason why we don't really attack this location, if we don't need to, is because we know we have reserves, and reserves can show up anywhere. And if you use reserves quite well, you'll notice that sometimes you bring in your hackathons down this angle to attack this position to back up your flank, and it stalls your opponent because they get caught off guard, because they're thinking about, how do I deal with this? They're not thinking about, I need to back up this location to guarantee that it stays under my control the whole game. And when that happens, I just bring in my death company behind this wall, and all of a sudden they're like, oh, I don't have enough defense here to actually outlast this. And when this unit hits home on this objective and check marks this off, and I'm getting overwhelmed by this as it is by MSU units, and the other sanguinary guard maybe comes out and bangs the middle, I can't be in all three positions at once. I don't have the speed to do this. Okay? And that's your big go turn. And that's also how you want to use rapid ingress. Is like, you really want to understand that your rapid ingress is mostly looking for this objective for any weak points. This is one of the most crucial weak points your opponent can give to you, because it's an objective, and it's their like objective that they're trying to rotate towards and hold. So if you can break through that for a third time, and then cause your opponent panic because he doesn't have enough resources there, it's going to be good. Also, if most of the army is there in Blood Angels, you're going to do a shit ton of damage to the majority of their army if they don't have screens, right? And that's the big thing about combat armies. You can't use these walls to hide, which means you're always exposed. There are no walls. You're just exposed by just getting charged. So they have to use other gimmicks to get around that. What gimmicks are those? It's going to be keeping units around this wall, so that if I have 400 points of my army right here, you have to charge my screen that you cannot shoot because it's behind a wall. So you have to charge this first. If you're going to charge my screen, let's say from this, I'm going to deep strike here, I'm going to charge over here 9 inches. Well, it might be a harder charge because this is screening you out a little bit further back. And if you're going to declare this as a charge, well, when you make the charge on a 9, most units will be straggled like backwards like this, and they're going to have to pile in towards the closest unit. So you're going to be fighting half here and half here. That might not be enough to get through this big brick of whatever it is. Make sense? So that's one of the ways to do it. The other way of how do you defend against this is going to be wrapping your transports. Okay, this is a transport thing, but it's also against melee armies. If you're playing a gun line, you have a hecaton. What you do is you get your scouts and you wrap your transport like this, and it makes the charge for your opponent much more difficult. So let's just say we put like all of our units like this, and there's like not enough space for anything to fit within 1 inch of this impulsor. We pre-measured it out. This is just an example, guys, so don't go like super hard about, oh, but there's a little bit of space right here that it can fit in, and it'll be within 1 inch of the impulsor. Okay, let's just move this thing back. So let's just say that there's no space to fit a model within 1 inch of the impulsor without going around. Okay, all of a sudden, my unit of sanguinary guard, if they're exactly 9 inches away from the impulsor, there's many tactics videos like this on YouTube, you guys can 100% find, but let's just say we're 9 inches away. Well, if we want to fight the impulsor, and charge it, we have to now charge super far away. We gotta go 9 this way, staying outside of the scouts range, 10, maybe an 11-inch charge. So by having this screen here, we all automatically declared that this unit is extremely difficult to charge. If you do charge it, you're gonna have to charge. I'll show you a trick here. So to get around this screen, what you do is you charge the secondary guard into the scouts. You base all the scouts, you get really close, okay? And then you have a second unit that comes up and does the automatic fight trick where you have a unit of jump packs come up, charge as well, make it into base-to-base contact with the scouts, and they're all going to fight the scouts first. They wipe the scouts out, and now that the secondary guard has not attacked yet, it's their turn to fight. Because they declared charge, they can still fight, which means they can still pile in 3 inches, and they'll pile in, and now they can fight the impulsor and take out the tank, right? So that's a trick to get around that. So that's a counter to a counter. The other way you want to get around secondary guards and charging and all this stuff is find out where they can land, okay? If they're trying to attack another, let's just use another tank for example. Our tank is right here, and they're gonna fight us, but find out where they can land. Be like, okay, if you move 12 inches, you can land right here. So we're gonna move block you by putting a unit of scouts onto this base. So now your movement is cut by a few inches. If we put more down, it's cut by more. And then what we do is take a few more scouts, and we kind of line. I'm just gonna copy this one, and we kind of line everything up like this so that there's nowhere for you to really land, and your movement is kind of limited, right? So if you move 12 inches, you can only go this way. You can't go as far as you wanted to, and so it's limited. You can also put this one back here, and now we're really limiting where they can go. They can only move 9 inches all of a sudden, pretty much 9.5 inches, right? And this is a 7-inch charge, which they can make 100%, but when they make it, they gotta stay outside of 1 inch of your scouts, or they gotta declare both of the charge. If they do declare both of the charge, what happens is each unit, let's just say they roll a 6-inch charge. Actually, even better than, let's say they roll a 9-inch charge, right? So they move the units 12 inches up, like this. Boom, boom, boom. They roll a 9-inch charge, which is a really good roll. Okay. And they move 9. Well, they got to base to base with everybody that they can. So they're going to base with this guy. They're going to base with this guy. They're going to base with this guy. And now the rest of them can't really base the impulsor. So they have to base the scout unit. Now this guy might base this way so he can swing into both people. But you can see here he doesn't have enough gap to like base here and with the scout. But let's pretend he does. He goes there. The rest of them can't do that. So they have to base to base contact with the scout unit. So all of a sudden your scout unit just limited how many attacks are going into the tank. And by 3 models. That's, 15 attacks that are not going into this impulsor. So your tank actually might survive because half the unit's not swinging into it. This is also a 7-man. This thing shouldn't exist, but yeah. Okay, so you get that. That's another way to defend against it, is by limiting their movement. This is a really good tactic against knights. So there's that tactic. The other thing you can do against Blood Angels is Heroic Intervention is pretty good. And if you have reactive moves, so I'll talk about reactive moves, because you guys have Jaegers in your army, and you guys play other things like demons and stuff or whatever. But if you have a reactive move, what you do is you do the same thing you did here, and they make the move up to you, and now you kind of use reactive move to move backwards, around, and surround the impulsor, like I showed you in this example over here, where now he can't charge the impulsor because there's nowhere to land, so he has to charge the scouts, which means that he needs a second unit to come out, and this way you can kind of get your you can make your opponent trade 2 units into 1 unit, essentially. It's a 2-for-2 trade, but your trash unit is irrelevant. They're going to need to bring out one of their trash units, and generally Space Marines cost 90 points. Your scouts cost like 65. Your warrior troops cost 50, right? So you're trading up that way. Or you're winning the war of attrition, going back to what I was saying, if you're bringing too many big bricks, you might not have enough trash left. And when I tell you guys in coaching to count up how many trash units they have, how many screens they have, right, how many units can do actions, if they're limited on it in list building, then you can target those units, take them out fast, which limits their output on scoring later into the game. It also forces your opponent to have to use their bigger pieces on the board a lot quicker and faster, which kind of accelerates the game into, hey, what if you didn't have that unit to just go out and do cleanse turn 1? What if you didn't have that unit on turn 2 to go out and do extend battle lines and containment on both edges, right? You would be forced to use a bigger unit or score less points ultimately, or just discard a secondary completely because you don't have enough things left. And a lot of people would just move out and realize that they just have to go and they're running out of resources, so they must go and attack. When they do that, you kind of win the game because instead of just playing slower, they play faster. So yeah, scout moves also what you can do in as a melee army if you play Ultramarines and stuff like this. Let's just pretend Commander Dante is here doing whatever, and let's say the scouts are charging us. You would basically bring this unit in behind your sanguinary guard and keep Dante like slightly back but within 6 inches of everybody. Okay, and then when they charges you, you would heroic intervention with this Dante squad up the board. You roll whatever you roll. Let's say you roll like a 7 average. You get into combat, and now he has to choose to either kill your sanguinary guard or kill the Dante squad. And he might kill one, he might not kill either. Either way, you're gonna wipe out his whole unit with one of yours. And when you do this on your opponent in your own turn with heroic intervention, a big swing happens either on primary because he doesn't deny you, or that again he's losing units in his own turn, which is speeding up the process of the game. Which is why again we go back. I mean, this is so easy to understand, but it's so important to have trash in your list. This is why the higher level you go, everything can be solved with trash and tiny MSU units. And when you start taking bigger bricks, you have a lot more damage output, but you can't be flexible. You're just stuck in what you have, and your army basically does damage. And if your opponent just doesn't allow you to deal that big amount of damage into something that's worth killing, like 5 units of scouts or something, it's not going to be worth his time. Like knights, for example, when they're trying to fight you, the big knights have to send a 500 point knight into the open to kill a 160 point gladiator tank, and you're like, okay, well now if I kill your knight, I just traded up like 300 points. That's really good. And they'll lose a quarter of their army, which is ridiculous. Same thing with Blood Angels. Yeah, so that's that tactic. That's a few ways to counter Blood Angels here. Now fight first. This is a big one. A lot of people are going to be using fight first. I'm going to show you a few tricks on how to counter fight first. Okay, this came out recently in a game that people played at my house, and they, even though they're like the main custodians and world leaders and the main melee armies, they still don't understand how to get over fight first. Okay, and whatever. So what you do is, let's say this unit is fighting first. Awesome. So, and you're playing Blood Angels, and you're like, hey man, I don't want to fight this unit because it had fights first. Let's go through this scenario one by one. The number one thing is, if your opponent has an impulsor nearby, we can do the whole combat gimmick of sending a unit over here, like this, and then swinging the rest of the sanguinary guard into the fight first unit. Okay? So we go this way, we stretch out these guys. This unit cannot heroic intervention because our opponent had no command points, and we're going to pile in, and these guys are going to take out the assault intercessors with fight first. Awesome, we did our job. Let's get into the example that our opponent has heroic intervention. Okay. We charge, and our opponent can heroic intervene. Well, if he heroics, we can either just swing into him and kill him, but if he has fight first and heroic, then he'll probably wipe out our squad, so we don't want that to happen. How do we bypass this? The easiest example is we take a unit of trash, we charge into this unit first. We base to base as many units as we can. Let's just say we do it like this. Okay. And now only these 2 units can move. So when he heroics, or sorry, he doesn't heroic, but we also pile in, and let's say we charge both squads, or we just have our guys here to do the same gimmick of like piling in afterwards. So let's go back to the original example. We're gonna pile in 3 inches into combat with these guys and take them out. But he has fight first. So he has to fight first here first. These guys kill all these scouts, and that's it. Our unit piles in, kills them. Mission accomplished. Let's go down another example. Another example is, what if we don't have trash? One thing to watch out for, and this is something that people don't understand, is he has fight first, he's next to ruin. Okay? Here's what we're gonna do. We're gonna take our Dante squad, and we're gonna charge the fight first unit. Okay? Let's just pretend that these guys are over here. Cool. We're gonna fight first the charge. We're gonna charge this unit. We got our guys into combat. Everything's cool. He's got fight first. Okay. So if he fight first, he has to pile in 3 inches, right? So if he piles in 3 inches like this guy can fight me. Let's make a wall like here. This guy's to pile in 3 inches. He can get not onto the other side of the wall, so he's kind of stuck where he is. So he's gonna go as close as possible and fight me here. This guy's gonna come up, fight, but now you'll notice that these 2 guys, I mean, this guy can still fight. So this guy can still fight, but if you measure 1 inch from the wall, just out. Okay, so let's just move this guy slightly back. So these 2 guys can't fight, and if we have a unit of 5 here, there's 2 other assault intercessors that are going to be stringed out backwards. When you're playing a melee army, and this is where positioning is so important, and the highest level of players that play melee armies identify this, is if we're screened out like this, these 4 guys, or these like 4 guys, if they pile in from basically back here, they can't really get into combat with anything, because our opponent had them like this way. Okay, so they piled in. These 3 got into combat. These 3 that were stringed out a little bit, we pre-measured it, and we're saying that they just barely can't get into combat with anything, and so we're good to go. And they can't get anywhere. Another thing, and now he fights us. He kills, like, let's just say 2 secondary guards with his captain and 1 guy, and then our whole unit picks up his whole squad. Awesome. We got around fight first. Let's do another example with this exact scenario. This is the one that's like more important. I think. I mean, not more important. They're all pretty important, but these are all the different options. Okay, we have a fight first unit right here, enjoying its day. Fantastic. The captain, okay, hanging out. We have our unit. So somebody brought up, so my brother, he likes to play the lion and stuff, so we're just gonna put like, let's use Chief Librarian Mephiston as our second fight first unit. If our opponent has 2 fight first squads next to each other, this is really good for us, because they are essentially wasting their ability of fight first. If we charge both of these units, he must decide which one to fight first with first. If he chooses Chief Librarian, he will basically do damage, and then we'll swing back and wipe out his assault intercessors. If he chooses the assault intercessors fight first, we can then choose to kill the Chief Librarian Mephiston. This is a much stronger when you have 2 units. If you charge with 2 units into his guys, and let's just pretend we have both these units hit really hard. He has 2 strong fight first units, we have 2 strong damage dealing units. He chooses to fight first because he must. He chooses to fight first, he wipes out one of our units of really strong jump packs or whatever. Right? Pretend these are like Death Company 10 men. He kills all the Death Company. Awesome. It's like a 5-man squad or a 3-man secondary guard squad. He takes it out first because he's like, I can actually kill this, and it's better to kill that because I'm only going to kill 3 out of these anyways. Cool. Then this squad kills the whole unit. Okay, if he just, so you can send 2 units into 1 fight first unit, or into both of his units, and like try to tag both, and then he can kill whatever squad he wants, and you'll get around it. The other thing was, if you charge, so 3 inches like this. I'm gonna try to do this like pretty correctly. If you position your captain over here and these guys and these two guys in the center, okay, like usually people have like this, right? So you position it like this. Let's charge on this side, okay? Let's charge our opponent on this side. I'm gonna see what happens. Let's like make sure that this guy is like right here, like right about here. Why? Because this guy can't. Actually, this is 3 inches, is like pretty far. Okay, let's move one of our guys over like this. I'm gonna stay exactly like 1 inch from this dude. What happens is, I'm doing this incorrectly again. Let's put this guy over here, and let's put this guy basically here is okay. It's fine. Okay, so this model is not in base-to-base contact, so he can pile in 3 inches. He wants to pile in. He can't pile in this way because he can't fit his base. Cool. He has to move towards the closest enemy model, which is going to be, let's say, the guy right next to him. So he's kind of like already there. He can't move away from him, so he has to pile in towards him. So he's stuck where he is. This unit can pile in 3 inches or consolidate 3 inches. So let's just say he has to go 3 inches. He can get, the furthest he can get is here, but he can't get over this wall. So this position of this model is going to go back here. So he can't fight because he can't get within 1 inch of either one of these guys, because this guy's taking up this space and this guy's going to be exactly 1 inch away from him. Okay. If the measurements are off, guys, it's just scrappy. All right. So let's talk about the two back units. They can't fight because base to base doesn't matter, because this unit's not base to base with our commander Dante. So if he base to base is his own guy, he can't fight because his front guy is not base to base with commander Dante. So the only way for this guy to fight is to get within 1 inch of us, but he can't fit over here. He has to move towards the closest enemy model, which is Dante, which he can't really fit. So he's not gonna be able to fight no matter where he goes. So let's put him away. This guy, same thing. If he moves 3 inches, he can't get over the wall. He can't fit here. He can't really fit anywhere. He has to go. He can't fight either. The sergeant, captain can't fight. He moves up. He fights our sanguinary guard, and we're all good. Okay. This is when you're trying to do these plays with your opponent, you really want to take your time and understand it's going to take a little bit of finesse and a little bit of timing. And the more you do it, the better you're going to get at it. And every single scenario is different because every single measurement is going to be different when you're playing on the tabletop, right? The models will be placed 0.1 inches away, 0.5 inches away, etc. The measurements are always going to be random. There's never going to be the exact same amount of measurements unless they literally push every single model as closest to the ruin as possible. But then that's fine. Okay. So in the fight phase, it's very important as a Blood Angel player who utilizes fight first, and as a opponent who has fight first, to understand what each person can do to get around fight first. And I just showed you like 4 examples, right, on how to counter fight first and why fight first is a strong rule, but why the top players can get around it, and how if the opponent is also top player, he understands how to get around fight first. He's going to be very particular about how he positions his units and finishes his moving his units like exactly like how far away they're going to be, and they're going to measure out 3 inches, being like, okay, if you do charge me, I'm exactly 3 inches from the back of my base, can clear this. So everything is going to be declared. The back of the base is 3 inches from the other side of the wall. Okay, so that if you do charge me, I can get my guys across over the wall and basically into base-to-base contact with you, or not base-to-base contact, but within engagement range over the wall, and we can fight. And he'll also think about where's unit positioned, how are you gonna charge me, how's the charge gonna finish, where are each of your models gonna go. This is very nuanced, very scary, but this is game changing, and it takes a lot of effort in the fight phase, and it's very important. So that's another way you can kind of beat your opponent's fight first unit, if you can just make a few units not fight. Now I'm using assault intercessors here. The exact example that I used in my real life game was there's basically models with captain-sized bases, like Blade Guard and stuff. So all these guys had bigger bases. And if you start adding in bigger bases with a Judiciary, which is what you're going to see in Blade Angels, is a Judiciary with Fight First, +1 to Wound in combat, and Blade Guard, right? It's a lot harder to get this guy 3 inches over the wall. It's actually like indefinitely harder to get them over. So you're going to actually be missing out with a lot of attacks. Especially if you charge from this angle here. And let's just pretend that he had in my example, my brother had the lion taking up this amount of space, so he couldn't do anything on that side. So we charge a unit, we get into combat, and all these 3 Blade Guard are stuck behind and they can't fight us. Which means we're only getting hit by the Judiciary and 3 Blade Guard, which is basically essentially going to 3 Blade Guard, but with -1 to hit, -1 to wound in combat, and we hit way harder than their Blade Guard do, because we're Blood Angels. Right? We can pop AOC, they can pop AOC, but we're going to be way more durable, we hit way harder, and we're going to also just take them all out. We also have a 2-up base save, so into AP2 with AOC, we're basically taking 3-up saves. -1 to hit, 3-up saves, -1 to wound, way stronger. And Dante might Battle Shock them, and then cause them to not use any strats. Very strong, so they can't AOC, they can't push out any extra damage. It's great. Awesome. Okay, so those are like pretty much all the fight phase gimmicks I can think about. Is positioning is really important, understanding the pile in phase, how they're going to pile in. Taking over your opponent's fight phase by tagging their models with trash first, so they have to fight first into the trash unit. Using a unit nearby to slingshot your units into the other unit. Using 2 squads to kill what you're charged into, then piling in the second squad into a nearby unit fully and taking it out. Multiple ways to get around this. Alright, so those are a few instances. I might be forgetting 1 or 2, but I think that kind of sums up everything. I kind of sidetracked there, but let's just go back to tactics. We just talked about rapid ingress. So sorry about that, but we talked about rapid ingress as a tactic. Okay, and using reserves. We're also gonna talk about what's another Blood Angel tactic. So we talk about like board control and what the army wants to do. Another tactic is going to be because you're playing with Space Marines and you're playing Blood Angels, when you have shooting armies, you're gonna be wanting to use your trash to trade effectively by using the pull mechanic and pulling their opponent's units out in the open so your units can shoot from the back. Okay, so understand that that also is part of your army. Popping transports is important for you, which is why you have all these pistols. Your 1 CP strat to advance, shoot, and charge is very important. I think it's going to come up more often than not. And, oh yeah, and clearing screens. Okay, this is why I was going to run my Stern Guard and things like this. So my opponent has the Impulsor in this exact scenario. He has a scout unit screening it out. I'm just going to use jump packs. Let's just use these guys. He has all of these guys, like 5 unit Space Marines, screening out the infiltrator because he's seen my videos and he's going to use that trick that I just taught on how to not allow the Blade Angels to charge. Okay. So what he's going to do, he's going to do that. I'm going to get my Sanguinary Guard. I'm going to grab a bunch of models here. And they're all going to go up. And they're getting ready to charge this unit, but they can't because these guys are blocking me. So I'm like back here basically, right? Not super close, but I'm trying to get into combat. It's like a 6-inch charge from here. That's the furthest I can go. What I'm going to do is bring in my scouts from reserves because my opponent didn't screen. I'm going to bring them back here. They're going to shoot the infiltrators. They shoot. They kill a few. So let's just roll some dice. Because I did this in person. 3 heavy bolters. Boom. Everything misses. That's really unfortunate. Sniper shot. Boom. Misses. Wow, that's a tragedy. Let's go with bolters. 1, 2, 3. 3 bolter shots. 3 hits. 1 save. Okay. He saves it. Awesome. That didn't work out well. Our unit in the front. Everything has to throw a grenade. 5 more dice. Deals 2 mortals. Kills a guy. He kills a guy in the back. Then we go on to the guns. We have our 2 melta pistols. They both hit. They both wound. 2 die. Awesome. Right? And then we have 2 guys left. Let's just pretend that they don't have any more guns. And we can now make the charge a lot easier because we wiped them out. This is the exact reason why I'm thinking about bringing 5 intercessors or 5 Stormguard, because Stormguard kind of hit harder than intercessors do. But intercessors have something unique to them, which is a grenade. A grenade launcher specifically. And a bunch of bolter shots. Because they have a grenade launcher and a bunch of bolter shots, it's actually very nice to just have a D6 blast weapon into 1 wound models or something that don't have a lot of good saves. Like orcs or like a bigger unit. Because a lot of times what's going to happen is people are not going to do this in Space Marines. Unless they can get away with it. But in other armies like orcs or Eldar or like GSC or whatever, they're going to have a lot of one wound models doing this. Like cultists. Because for 50 points you get 10 guys, right? In CSM you get 10 dudes for 50 points. And when you have 10 dudes for that cheap, you're going to take them to screen it out. But against those armies, blast is going to come up big and 1 damage weapons are going to come up really big. So it's all about getting extra firepower into that unit. Even though Stormguard are pretty damn good, they have mortal wounds, extra shots. The blast keyword I'm hoping makes up for it. And they're slightly cheaper, and they have sticky, which kind of all adds up. So I'm thinking of one or the other. Stormguard obviously are just the more premium unit. But I'm kind of enjoying the bolter version of just going up there and shooting a grenade launcher and 20 more shots, right? So these are all options depending on points. And also I haven't used normal intercessors in a hot minute, and I'm thinking that they might have more sticky objective cases to be made against indirect sisters or against anything. And if I do rapid ingress them back here in my opponent's turn, I can sticky this and move out and control the board even easier. So while the Stormguard only have one design choice of going out there and shooting and clearing screens, they're like 10 points more expensive. They hit like 10% more damage out there. The intercessors have more versatility and more options to either sticky objectives, have OC2 on every single model, and have the shooting option as well, right? So I'm getting 3 things out of that unit instead of just having it just to do damage. Okay, that's I think everything as far as tactics go that I want to talk about. Hopefully this has been good. I know I was going to make this video short, but it's not that short. And that's how you play Blood Angels. You really much just try to keep your opponent back. Like World Leaders, you send out your small units, you score your points, and you're not trying to move into their base. Ideally, what you're trying to do is keep them back there by just making them scared. Just how World Leaders are scary. You're just sitting in the middle of the map and just telling your opponent, if you come 2 inches closer to me, that 8-inch charge becomes a 6-inch charge, and I'm going to go for it. And I'm going to kill whatever's there. And if you don't find a way to either move block me or push out really heavily on one side or get your reserves to come in to create pockets for you and wait a couple turns till maybe my screens are out of the way so I can't just send a 5-man unit, I got to send a bigger squad to kill you, you're going to have a tough time. And when I make my video, thanks to Chris asking about different fundamental tactics I use, I'll show you guys a different tactic that I have in my core list design sometimes that really disrupts this plan of sending out trash to kill something. Also, this is why transports are good, because a 5-man jump pack squad can't really kill Impulsor. You gotta send something more durable, and transports are quite durable. So this is the thing that kind of counters melee armies, is having a lot of transports that is cheap, hard to kill, and then there's the good stuff is inside, which means you got to send out multiple units, or you got to have some shooting elements to counteract the fact that people have transports. This is another reason why you probably want to run Lancers. Now I know Ballistic Dreadnoughts are cheap, but Ballistic Dreadnought, like I explained in my last video, doesn't kill anything. It's very, very, very reliant on RNG and very reliant on your opponent having bad saving throws and not having armor and contempt. and cover. The second they have that, it sucks. If our Blood Angels army had a 1 CP strat to get ignore cover plus an AP, or just a, if you shoot your at the moment target, you get like plus 2 AP or something like this, even plus 1 AP or just ignore cover period, it'd be very effective. Unfortunately, we don't have that. Gladius does, which is something that, you know, Gladius has over us, is the fact that your guns that you're taking becomes slightly better. 20% better pretty much, so yeah. Okay, that's the video. If I missed something, if there's questions, message me. A lot of you guys watch the videos but don't reply to them, don't like to have any comments about them, so I don't know what you guys are watching, if you guys are watching at all. I know most of you guys are watching it, but are not replying or commenting or emoting or anything, so I don't know like what's missing, what I'm forgetting, what you guys need extra advice on, what you guys found really helpful. I have no clue. So yeah, get back to me, and hopefully this is a good video. I'm going to record a second video now for Chris and get both of those out today, I think. So yeah.